G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Stu, that's Dill, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We're back again to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. Dill, it was a great show last week with special guests JT and Tom in my absence. Mate, they went so well, I didn't think I'd be invited back on tonight, but thankfully, here I am back doing what I love doing most. It's Wednesday, you know what that means, TLT's dropped. We're going to take a deep dive into all things round three. Before we get there, how'd you go in round two?
Yeah, g'day Stu, g'day viewers and listeners. Yeah, it was good fun last week. We had a good back and forth between JT, Tom and myself, but it's nothing like the Fantasy Bros being back together, and I'm sure everyone is keen for it. Look, yeah, round two, I think it's one of those rounds that most coaches just want to put a line through and forget it ever happened. Like most coaches, I had a pretty tough week. I had some success picking some individual players across my various squads, but I just couldn't put it together across one squad in particular. And so I fell quite low in the rankings across most of my squads. Look, with the likes of Walsh, Edwards, Fafita, Olakuatu, Turbo, etc., it just wasn't a good week for me. So, yeah, that's sort of how I ended up. Mate, did you finish any better?
Only marginally. Look, it was great to see a few unfamiliar names toward the top of some of the leaderboards, and just sort of reminded us that even if you own all the top player cards in terms of sort of averages and points scored from last season, they're not going to win your weeks every single week. And, we saw the likes of, Isaiah Yeo, who's probably been a staple in our sides for the last, however many years. He had a really poor score and his worst fantasy score since 2019. And those people that don't own a Yo card or decided not to play him, for whatever reason, they certainly profited. So it's great to see a number of different names at the top end of that leaderboard. My best finish was about 35th across the four comps. And I think last week I was in the top 20 in just about every single comp. So a big difference between those first 2 weeks. Definitely time for a bounce back, I think, mate.
Yeah, definitely. And just a quick shout out to one of our mates, Wet Bandits. He found himself fourth in that starter comp there, and I think he's 12th overall at the moment. He pretty much just started this season with a bunch of those bronze packs and a couple of those common packs as well, using our code there. So, shout out to him. It just goes to show, a couple of pods and you're sitting nice and pretty near the top of the leaderboard.
I think he was asking if he might be able to become the third fantasy bro.
I think there's a few lining up for that. I think Cal is trying to work hard there as well on that leaderboard there at starter. But anyway, remember, we come to you every Wednesday night, making sure that you are subscribed to the Fantasy Bros YouTube channel so that you do not miss a thing. We'll discuss the all-important starts and sits, and we'll reveal, as we've talked about, who we're going to start in our starter squads. Already we've got one of our favourites in, and that is Sif Kanga getting involved in the chat. Howdy, mate. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget.
Let's get rowdy.
There is plenty of opportunity to fire through some questions, who you're starting, who you're sitting. If you've got a 50-50, we will try and help you with that decision through some of our expertise, some of our data that we've got as well. Remembering, if you haven't, make sure that you subscribe to all of our other socials. We'll be making sure that we get on there as much as possible, posting to TikTok and Insta throughout the season, as well as obviously YouTube. And then you can find us on either our YouTube page or the GameDay Squad YouTube page or their Facebook page as well. So don't forget, follow us at Fantasy Bros AU. We'll have plenty of content, and as well as always, we'll get some pack giveaways and card giveaways happening throughout the season.
Yeah, that's right, mate. It's definitely not too late for anyone to get started in GameDay Squad either. That's the beauty about it. It's not necessarily season long. You can just play to win various weeks, and you can also get your mates involved as well and get them signed up so that they can start competing against us in that starter comp. Now, all they need to do is simply download the app or visit the website. They can create an account and use the promo code FBRL25. That code will reward people with 3 9-player rare packs. 9-player common packs, and those cards can be used, to start building out some classic and some challenger squads on top of all of the bronze cards that they'll get just for signing up and starting an account to go toward their starter side. So if you're an avid player, you love GameDay Squad just like we all do, get some mates involved, get them to use that code on screen, And the more the merrier, and make sure that they join us on a Wednesday night, and they can win some even more cards. So stick around, and there'll be a chance to grab yourself some of those cards later on as well. Dill, what's the plan for today, mate?
Yeah, look, as always, we're going to jump through our previews for the best players for round 3 across all of the positions. We'll reveal who we're playing in our bronze starter squads. And as always, we'll get to our Bro Down Showdown segment where some of the viewers and listeners can win some unreal cards. And that is important to note as well, is that we, in the past, we have talked about our champion sides when we're coming to discussing the best for the round, but we have turned that over to our starter squads because of the GDS Cup. And it is almost here. We've only got 1 week left to try and qualify for that GDS Cup. The way it works, as we spoke about last week with Tom, 512 players, their top scorers, 512 at the end of round 3, will be automatically in that draw. In that head-to-head competition. It's an elimination style. So if you find yourself in that top 512, you'll be automatically entered. You'll go head-to-head with a random opponent that the GDS boys will organise. And then if you win your matchup, you progress to the next round and you win yourself some awesome prizes. Remember, if you are the last coach standing in that eliminator competition in that GDS Cup, you will win the 33rd pick in the 2025 GDS Rugby League prize card draft. That is massive. So all you need to do, as Stu said, jump on, download the app, put in our promo code, plus get your bunch of starter packs with all of the top players across the competition. They have made sure that some of the best players are in those packs rather than some of those fringe players that you might not necessarily use. So there's an opportunity there to really build a squad out. So get involved, get started.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly how many are in the competition, but if those new players start a side this week and they go well in starter, there's every chance they might sneak into that top 512 and be part of the cup as well, just after playing the 1 week. So plenty of reason to get involved and get started with GameDay squad. Looks like we've got Melissa in the chat as well. G'day, Melissa. Yeah, we might talk about David Fafita shortly. That was quite disappointing last week, wasn't it? We'll mention his name once or twice during the Edges section, and Dylan Lucas as well, Sif Kanga. Yeah, we've just heard a bit of news recently that looks like we'll have to get Dylan Lucas out of our squads. But Dill, let's start. How about we start with the hookers, mate? And we've got Harry Grant there highlighted in gold. I think you and I are both somewhat keen to play him, although there are probably a few pods that some coaches might look to this week, particularly since Harry Grant didn't have an amazing score against the Eels in a 50-point victory. And the fact that we know Penrith are typically a really good and sound defensive team, although they have been allowing plenty of points to the hooker, albeit in a pretty small sample size. So you running Grant, and what are some reasons for that?
Yeah, I'm running Harry Grant, and I'm not too concerned about this, so-called tough matchup that they potentially have against the Panthers. We've seen some vulnerability there from the Panthers, even against the Sharks back in the Vegas game. There was an opportunity there probably for the Sharks to win that game. And then we saw last week what happened with the Roosters. So I think the Premiers are sort of not becoming or not maintaining that status that we know that they're such a strong side to come up against. I feel like maybe some of that allure of that dynasty is sort of washing away a little bit, maybe. And maybe that's just what they want us to think, and that they're playing some mind games and they're going to have a massive, 5, 6, 7 games on the trot. But yeah, for me, it's Harry Grant. I think if we go back and look at the numbers for hookers against the Panthers in the first 2 weeks, we see Brayley making 61 tackles in Vegas. That is massive. He did only score 56 GDS points from those 61 tackles. He had a few missed and a couple of errors. But then we see Watson make 49 tackles, and he went over for 2 tries as well. So we can see that, the Penrith Panthers have allowed an average of 75.95 GDS points to starting hookers playing 80 minutes. So I think for me, Harry Grant's got the opportunity to make plenty of tackles. Hopefully he limits those demerits and missed tackles. And he has a sneaky shot at maybe getting over the white line maybe once or twice as well, which we've seen, Connor Watson do.
Yeah, and Brayley also, had that nice short ball to AFB, so the Panthers can be quite vulnerable through the middle that we have seen lately. But I feel like they might have sort of circled this Storm matchup in round 3 on their calendar. They obviously had an awesome trip away in Vegas. I had the Roosters in round 2, but looking at their loss to the Bronx in round 1, they probably had their sights set on Melbourne and really trying to aim up to the new competition favourites, really. So the focus is now on the Storm being the main team that can probably stop that Panthers onslaught going for a 5th. So yeah, I feel like we will see a much improved Panthers outfit, but that just might mean more tackles to Harry Grant. Obviously, Connor Watson's performance was incredible, but he did play a number of those minutes at lock. But we just know that there's plenty of traffic through the middle. He tackled all night long, and let's just hope Harry Grant can do that as well, and hopefully not fall off too many tackles. For those people looking for a bit of a pod, I don't really mind having a look at Wade Egan or even Tommy Starling, but they've got so much downside in terms of what can happen. We know that their floors are obviously quite low, but then you factor in the Wade Egan injury that hasn't happened yet this season. So every game he's sort of closer to an unfortunate concussion or a bit of an elbow complaint. He just seems to be one of those players that seems to go down with the Josh Dugans, maybe if you remember watching him play a few years ago. So Tommy Starling's been excellent as well. He's been running the ball a lot. He seems to be quite rejuvenated this season. But his minutes aren't a guarantee every week either, like Blake Brayley or Harry Grant as well. So yeah, for me, the safety in Harry Grant. Let's hope he minimises those demerits. But look, I think I might even throw out an Egan or a Brayley in a classic or a challenger, just because I feel like they could easily match Harry Grant or even go beyond him, and they're in a bit of form at the moment as well.
Yeah, I do like the Egan shout. Look, on him, he scored 72 last week against the Sea Eagles, and then 56 against the Raiders in Vegas. The Sea Eagles limited Reece Robson in week 1 to 24 points. So that's a massive turnaround between, what the Sea Eagles did in defense of the hooker position and then what Wade Egan was able to do. It means obviously, he was able to go to another level against that team that sort of looked great to start with in terms of the Sea Eagles, and then sort of dropped off very quickly throughout that game over at Mount Smart. Egan's made 92 tackles so far across the 2 games, and he's only missed 4, which is pretty good numbers to look at. He's also averaged 100 running meters per game as well, which you can't discount that at all. It's 100 meters that hookers often don't get that sort of running game happening. So I'm quite happy to see 10 points from those run meters come, for base. So I think Egan's a pretty good look this week, albeit that I think it's going to be a tough game there against the Roosters. I feel like the Warriors got up and had a big game back at home. They had obviously the sending off of Tohu Harris and a bit of fanfare around that. So I don't know, maybe it's a down week for the Warriors. I'm not sure yet, but I'm wearing my jersey with pride anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, 2 big bounce back performances from those 2 teams. So let's see which of those 2 can keep things rolling into round 3. Mate, the middle forwards for round 3. Last week you spoke about the big 3 in sort of Isaiah Yeo, Payne Haas and Adam Fanua-Blake. I think that's changed pretty quickly, don't you? And a man we probably need to be talking about as a must is certainly Terrell May. We spoke in the preseason that he just needed that sort of 60 minutes and 65 plus meant he'd be in absolute God territory. And didn't we see that on the weekend in 30-something degree weather in the afternoon as well, when it was nice and warm? He punched out 65 uninterrupted minutes, punched out a massive score of what was his score? He where are we? What did May score?
68 points,
yeah.
I think. 68, 69.
So he went more than a point,
massive.
just above a point a minute in those 65 minutes. And they were doing things so easy that he didn't actually need to come back on the field. I think any other match that might have been a bit tighter, he'd probably be asked to play, upwards of 70 minutes. And that's just incredible from a middle forward who, didn't have any attacking stats. It was basically all just, that base and power. So for me, he's an absolute must alongside Payne Haas. Isaiah Yeo for me has now gone, those 3 are now ahead of Adam Fanua-Blake, and we've got Connor Watson and Tino's name highlighted in gold there as well. I think I'm going to play both of them over AFB and maybe give him a sit this week. I know he might have a pretty decent matchup, but he only played 49 minutes again on the weekend. maybe that was because, they were doing things comfortably, and that's just going to be how he's used in games where they're winning. He won't be needed to push past that 55 or up to 60 minutes. But if an injury happens or if they're in a tight tussle, he probably will be expected to go longer. This week is another game that I expect the Sharks to win quite well. So I can see another, maybe sub 50-minute game. And if he doesn't find the try line, we could see a reasonably low score again. So there's my musings for my 5. Let's get into some deeper stats and why you might be choosing an AFB over, say, a Tino or a Connor Watson.
Yeah, it's such a tough call at the moment because we sat back and in the preseason we said that, we talked about AFB and the potential in the decreased minutes, and then come round 1, we didn't see that. We saw him get plenty of minutes, and then last week, like you said, he wasn't sort of needed through that. So I'm just a little bit concerned. I don't know. I think I'm going to play AFB. I'm still tossing up then whether I play Tino, because we saw him just come out and have an absolute massive game in his return from that ACL. So he had I think he had 2 games last season, did his ACL in that second game, and then had the whole season off, had a massive preseason and came out and, as we were going to talk about in terms of Fafita, he was back on the field before Fafita even, made the field. So I think maybe Tino's the way forward. He just seemed to do everything. I think he had 7 tackle breaks last week, which is the third most tackle breaks of the middles for the first 2 games, and he's only played 1. So I think that's massive. The other one that you talked about there, I really like Watson, and I think I'm going to lock Watson in to a spot. And I think it's just going to be that 5th spot then I'm not sure about. Watson comes up against the Warriors, though, that allowed an average of 24.7 points to all hookers across the first 2 games so far. So that's a little bit concerning, but then we know he does potentially move back to lock as well. And I feel like there's some more joy there potentially. Watson's tackle efficiency, though, is the thing that gets me. He's currently at 98% tackle efficiency. He's made 98 tackles and he's missed 2 in the 2 games. So that is absolutely massive. On top of that, he's had 9 tackle breaks across his 2 games, and that's second only to Payne Haas for the middle. So I think Watson's the big one for me in terms of that 5th spot. And then I'm going to toss up between AFB and Tino, and I'm not sure where that's going to go yet. I think potentially I'm just going to stick with AFB one more week and see what happens with the rotation for the Titans, because as we're going to talk about, that Fafita rotation was confusing. And I'm not sure what it's going to look like moving forward. And I think I want another week at least to have a look at that.
Yeah, that's right. And I sort of had the same thought last week with Tino, just wanting a week to have a look and see how he'd be used, see, how he came back after that long time off the field. But it was just incredible. Those that played him, well done to you, because you probably didn't really need to force him into your lineup. It probably was an easy wait and watch. But yeah, he was unreal, and he just plays with so much heart and soul, like Connor Watson, I guess. They're always amongst it, even if their side is losing. They're always making tackles and always looking for ways to help with the attack. So yeah, Tino just oozes fantasy points, and he certainly passed the eye test in more ways than one last week. So yeah, for me, straight back into my side, and he's obviously quite dangerous close to the line, particularly against some other forwards that are pretty tired, either side of halfway. So yeah, Tino for me. Those Connor Watson numbers are fantastic as well. I love those numbers and the tackle efficiency. That's probably the one area that Tino didn't do so well on the weekend. I think he missed 5 tackles.
Yeah.
So even though he had a big work rate, that's still 15 demerit points, which means, if he tidies up that area, that's an extra 15 to 20 points, that he's not losing. And if he only misses 1 or 2, that score on the weekend could be anything. So yeah, loving the Tino play. Dill, we've got 4 names there in white. We've got Horsburgh, Barnett, King, and Fisher Harris. If a few of our followers didn't have, a few of our listeners didn't have those 5 or 6 cards listed in gold, which of those do you like, and any reasons why they might be playable this week?
Yeah, I'm not sure where I would go from here. That I think that's the tough thing. I like Max King. He just seems to be, getting on with the job. He doesn't seem to be someone that you really see when you're watching the game. And so I like that he just gets on with his work and he just gets through it. And the Dogs potentially have a bit of an easier matchup this week. So, yeah, I think if it was for me, Max King or maybe Corey Horsburgh, based on what he's been doing, Hosking's out. So Horsburgh might take on some more workload again. And he's putting up some pretty good numbers there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those three, King, Fisher, Harris, and Horsburgh, very close together on the total points scored, and obviously the averages as well, playing similar amounts of games. But I don't think you can go wrong with either of those three. So yeah, if you're looking for someone that probably won't be played too heavily, guys, or if you don't own one of those cards of the the heavily owned players, King, Fisher, Harris, or my man in the big red is probably a suitable play this week. Deal anything more on middles, or you want to get into the edges?
I just want to bring up Cozzy's Posse's question here for you, mate. He's asked, how do you say Tino's surname?
Is that for me, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that is Tino Fa'asua Mala'awe. Don't ask me how to spell it. Definitely don't ask me how to spell it, but Tino Fa'asua Mala'awe. And if you want any more pronunciations like Big Marky Mark, when we get to the centers, I'll give that a crack as well.
Yeah, good.
All right, Nathaniel wants us to move on to the edges, so we shall. Dill, I think we had a bit of news come through in the last few hours. There was a bit of talk around Twitter maybe yesterday, and a lot of it was sort of around people just making up rumors, but it seemed to be pretty accurate around Dylan Lucas. Can you fill us in for what you know about that?
Yeah, so the tweet came through before from the NRL physio. Lucas is expected to be ruled out with a hammy complaint. The Knights do have a bye next week, so they're probably looking for that couple of weeks off for Dylan Lucas. There was also some reports of the boys getting around Jermaine McEwen at training, sort of high-fiving and congratulating him. So that could be a little sign that maybe he's getting a debut. I think he's a 19-year-old superstar coming through. So it'll be interesting to keep our eyes on that late mail when it comes through. But yeah, the reports at the moment puts a massive line through one of the edges that one of the edge forwards I was going to start in Dylan Lucas. So I'm going to go back to my dartboard and probably just spin it and have a throw and hope that I land on someone that scores well, to be honest.
Well, if you look at the total points scored so far and obviously the averages as well, here are the top scorers in the edge position. Dylan Lucas is that man at number one. We've then got Jordan Ricky, Toby Couchman, Hosking, Nikora, Hudson Young, Tupanua, Wilton, Jaden Sewer, Preston, Arrow. Then there's Haumole Olakau'atu, and even just below him is his teammate Ethan Bullymore. Yeah. So that dartboard is, probably just as good as making an educated guess. Yeah. And we've got to put a line through Dylan Lucas now. So is the next man up Jordan Ricky? According to the stats, yes. For me, I probably can't quite go there. Oh. He has been quite impressive. And if he finds the try line, I'll certainly have a bit of egg on my face. Yeah. But for me, mate, I'm just going to go back to, I think, Mr. Reliable in Britain Nikora. He's looking really good still on the right edge there with the Sharkies. They've got a pretty nice matchup against a Bunnies team that have let in a lot of points down their defensively left side, which is where Hines, Nikora, Ramian and Stone Street line up. So I think there's going to be plenty of points going down that way. Nikora runs a beautiful line. He's got an offload. He follows kicks well. And I think there's every chance that he's involved in a try, scoring one himself, or even throwing the last pass for one as well. So even if he doesn't score, I sort of expect that low 50, which is, I'll take. I don't really want to be playing someone who might be able to go 80, but also might have a stinker of a 25 or 30 in them as well. So Nikora's one for me. Are you looking at him this round? And if so, who might be another one that you've got your eyes on?
Yeah, I think with that late mail around Lucas, I think I'm going to pivot to Nikora. He scored a 59 and a 50 so far, which, is decent numbers when we look at someone like Keon Kalongamatangi or Haumole Olakau'atu. Like you said, they had a good week the first week and then a couple of poor game the second week. So at least Nikora's had some consistency there. And he comes up, as you say, against a Bunny side that has allowed 60 plus GDS points to that right side attacking edge to edge forwards there. So I think I might just lock in Nicker and hope that he gets a short ball, or yeah, like you said, he has that last pass for the try assist, and then he does the work, and like we know he does in terms of tackling and tackle breaks, etc. So yeah, for me, it's probably Nickera, and then the other man that I'm pretty keen to play is Preston for the Doggies. I think he's someone that I'm feel like he could potentially be a pod, because he's not near that top of that list that you talked about. When you go to sort by averages, he's not quite at the top there. So a few people might not be looking at him, but he matches up against an Eels side that's allowed just absolute bulk points to right side attackers. We saw in week 1, Ali Katoa score 71 up against the Eels. And then we also saw last week Galvin and Taruva, who are on the right side for the Tigers, just carve them up with 70 points between them each. So I feel like Preston's got that opportunity. He's had a decent start. He scored 49 points, an average of 49 points across those 2 games. The issue for me, I think, is he's missed six tackles so far, and he's had 2 penalties go against him. So that hasn't helped his scoring at all. So if he can minimise those, I think he's got a sensational opportunity to at least, have a pretty decent game against that woeful Eels left side.
And with Matty Burton out as well, you'd probably expect Toby Sexton to be commanding a bit more of the ball, meaning it's probably going to move to the right a little bit more often than when they sort of attack down that left channel quite often through Burton and Kickow. So yeah, I like that. I like that shout, particularly in terms of Preston getting through a lot more work. Looks like we got a Warriors fan in the chat, mate. Apologies, can't quite pronounce that name. Dill, coming from New Zealand yourself, you might have a better chance. I mean, it looks like it might be is that an RTS or maybe an SJ fan in the display photo?
Yeah,
but
we've
got a RTS, yeah. So we've got a shout for Beau Fermor. Yeah, I love that shout as well, and he's certainly as a maybe for me as well. We saw just how reliable he is in terms of his fantasy output last week. He scored 65 game day squad points. He was really honest in both attack and defense, making 30 tackles. He only missed 1. He ran for 130 meters, broke a tackle, and pumped out 3 offloads as well. And a lot of ball goes down that left-hand channel as well. They're obviously very dangerous there with Campbell and then the speed and the outside men there as well. So, there's every chance that that Fermor finds plenty of attacking stats most weeks as well. But he's got plenty of base. And even if he doesn't find the try line or get an assist, he's probably still likely to get a mid 50 point score, which is, probably a point that we take pretty easily now in that edge position that's becoming harder and harder. So I love that. I love that shout. And it is SJ in the display photo. So you might have just made a new best friend there, Dill.
I think he's just said it's Sif Kanga. There you go, mate.
How that is Sif Kanga. There you go.
There we go.
Beauty. Gotcha. All right, mate.
I think in terms of Fermor, I think the important thing as well is that, there's obviously David Fifita sitting on the bench, and we did see him come on and play some limited minutes there. I think it was 31 minutes that he ended up playing for in that game, and he didn't do a lot either. I thought there were some times that we've seen in the past where he sort of sits behind the play the ball and to make sure he's not involved, and I saw that a couple of times again, which isn't great, and maybe that preseason injury and surgery that he had, it means he's still not quite 100%, and they're just taking a slow approach to easing David Fifita and his workload back into the NRL. So I wish we had some more news and some more information about the injury and the rehab and what the minutes are going to be like. But just based on that last week, I think we need to just keep an eye on Fifita and what he does and where he comes onto the field. It would be concerning if he does come on and replace Beau Fermor. But I feel like potentially he might, come on and take the minutes of Cleese Haas at the moment. I feel like that might be sort of the rotation that they're going to go with. So I think if people are keen to play Beau Fermor, I'd be all around it as well. And he's definitely someone that I have had a look at a couple of times, and he might end up in 1 or 2 of my squads, I think, across the 4 options in game day squad.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that makes the most sense. Taking over the minutes away from Haas and Cleese Haas, even moving back into the middle if needs be. So, yeah, I think there is a world where both Fermor and Fifita can be relevant, but we need to be able to see it first. And yeah, they're certainly not doing us any favors down there on the Gold Coast. So, yeah, definitely a wait and watch. But I don't know how I missed this comment from Jonathan Turner there from JT. He's saying that Ricky could be the ultimate pod, but he's let that slip for everyone watching now. Cowboys allowing 64 points to right edges. So he's not really a pod if you talk about him all that often, mate. So he might find a spot in my starter team, actually. He's not there at the moment, but just looking back through those numbers and seeing his name at the top of the list there, and the very good likelihood that he could crash over and score a try as well this week. I don't want to do it to myself, but gee, who would have thought that we're talking about playing Jordan Ricky in our round 3 team? Let's move on, mate. Enough Jordan Ricky chats. Round 3 halves. Last week we said Cleary and Hines are just about a must each and every week. Yep. We saw some much more impressive signs from Hines, particularly in the kicking department. He resumed those duties after obviously overcoming that slight groin strain that meant Braden Trindle had the tee over in Vegas, but it was great to see him kicking again. And he was kicking beautifully as well from the sideline. So looks to have overcome that minor setback. He's kicking a lot in general play as well. Sharks still looked really clunky in attack, but still managed to score plenty of points. So look, Hines hasn't been at his best, but I think he's not that far away from a big 80 or a 90-point score. And Nathan Cleary probably even scores better against some of the better teams in the competition. He might, often maybe take a bit of a backseat, or some of the others score plenty of points around him in some of the easier matches. And against the Storm this week, I wouldn't be surprised if we see his biggest score of the first 3 rounds, because he really needs to aim up and step up. He'll be disappointed after last week. He'll blame himself a lot for that loss to the Roosters when they were massive favourites. So yeah, I think they're 2 pretty comfortable plays for me. It probably just comes down to that half a spot number 3.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I feel the same way. I think it's all about that third spot. And there's plenty of options for us to choose from this week. I think as well that, there's plenty of upside. Hughes or Munster against the Panthers. Like you said, I think it's going to be a massive game. I think it's going to be, a big back and forward. It could be the grand final again, to be honest. So I think one or both of them might stand up and have a big game as well. Humphreys against the Sharks. He's been unreal so far. I think there's no reason why I wouldn't play him potentially. Obviously, the Sharks are a bit of a better defensive side than what he's come up against so far, but I think he's got the makings of probably what sort of Lockie Galvin did last year, and surprised everyone. Reynolds against the Cowboys, which I'm sure you're going to talk about a little bit, because I feel like that's the way you're leaning. The way I'm leaning actually is that man previous in Lockie Galvin, I think, up against the Dolphins. I think that's where I'm sort of, my mind's at the moment. So far this season, Lockie Galvin has averaged about 55 points. So he's not in the top 5. He's ranked 7th at the moment in terms of averages for halves. So he could be someone, again, that might not be on the minds of every coach. So it might be a little bit of a pod play, although like we say the name, and that no longer really means he's a pod. But he comes up against a Dolphins team that have allowed rookie sensation Jamie Humphreys 77 GDS points in game 1, and then Fletcher Sharp last week, he scored 67 against them as well. So the Dolphins, we've spoken about it a few times. Last week we talked about it quite a bit, that the Dolphins just are far from that Wayne Bennett coach side that we saw last year, where they were a pretty decent side, both in attack and defense, but they've just allowed plenty of points down both sides of the field. There hasn't really been, a more dominant right or left defensive side from the Dolphins. So I think Galvin's got a really good opportunity to feast on some points there. And, we've seen that early on, and I think that I might be leaning that way. Although looking at Reynolds' numbers and the Cowboys' numbers in particular more so, I think maybe that's, a really good option as well.
Yeah, I think it is all about the Cowboys for me. And, they're bound to turn their defense around at some point, but we haven't seen enough yet. And they're already making a number of changes, and they've got a couple of blokes coming in, for their first game this season. And they're probably not going to, solve every single issue around defense. Maybe they're a bit better, maybe a bit more creative in attack, but defense has been their real big issue at the moment. That right half spot, Cherry Evans scored 81 in the first match. Nicho Hines scored 68 last match, and Adam Reynolds has already averaged around that 62 points for the season already. So he's already been playing well, and he now gets the best matchup in the first month of the competition. So with a team that's expected to score plenty of points and bounce back from to be honest, a really disappointing and below average performance last week, I think the Broncos fans will definitely want to turn things around, and Adam Reynolds certainly should be part of that as well. He's obviously playing on that dominant right-hand side in terms of up against the weak left-hand side. Even blokes like Selwyn Cobbo are going to absolutely eat as well, and that probably means there's an assist or two coming from Reynolds, either with a long pass or the boot as well. We know the Broncos are going to score points. That means Reynolds either gets that try assist or at least gets a kick for a goal. He's got a sneaky habit of scoring tries as well, particularly in blowout wins. Yeah. His defense has been quite poor, but I don't really think that's a big problem against the Cowboys, who haven't shown too much in attack either. He has missed 10 tackles across the 2 matches, which is a bit concerning. But hopefully he can fix that area of his game, or make up for that with plenty of goals. Or we know that he has a massive build on him. He's gonna make plenty of field position advantages for the Broncos, and yeah, I think he'll be quite creative and roll the ball in the goal a couple of times, set up a few, and he'll probably find Reece Walsh on his inside or his outside out the back and score some points in that way as well. So I think Adam Reynolds has a number of avenues to points this week, and he probably won't feature in my team at all outside of a matchup against the Cowboys, but I'm going to take advantage of that really weak left-hand side. We've seen it for 2 weeks on the trot. Reynolds has been scoring well anyway, so for me, it just makes sense. Fingers crossed that the injury curse doesn't strike him down.
You've said it now. You've said it.
It's opposite day. Someone said it's opposite day today, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, the tough thing is, and I'll get to my centers and my fullback a little bit later, but the hard thing is, I talked about last week not wanting to load up on one team because they've got so many good matchups on paper, and I tried not to do that with the Seagulls last week in some really dominant matchups against the Warriors. And look, we saw what happened. We saw DCE have a poor game. We saw Turbo have a poor game. We saw Olakalatu have a poor game. We saw, Garrett do all right at the end there. But so, yeah, I just don't know if I want to load up on all of these Broncos players, thinking they are all going to score really well. And then they come out and there's an upset there and the Cowboys get one up over the bigger brothers or little brothers. I'm not sure what that rivalry is anymore or who's what. But he's got some great stats behind him in terms of what the Cowboys have allowed 62 GDS points to all right side attackers so far this season. It includes that average of 75 GDS points to right side halves, as you mentioned as well. So there's every opportunity for Reynolds. I just hope that it doesn't go the way of what we saw last week and that all the Broncos players can feast.
Nathaniel wants to know if playing Hughes and Cleary in the same match is an option, or he even thinks maybe staying away from both entirely and look for someone else. I'll answer this one myself first, and Dill can either agree or add something. But mate, for me, Cleary's a lock. He's the best player in the competition for a reason. Matchup proof. About one of the only few backs that's matchup proof. So yeah, I'm playing Cleary with confidence. But Hughes is pretty simple to put on the pine this week, given the tough matchup. In saying that, the Storm are very likely to win this match, and that means Hughes is probably going to play some good football. But I can't play both. I want to play Cleary, so I'll keep Hughes on the pine, and he'll certainly feature in my team over the next couple of rounds. But it's just this Penrith matchup that's turning me off. I know that they've conceded plenty of points, but they'll be a lot smarter this round, and that they're going to want to give it to Melbourne, and that means probably limiting Hughes and Katoa and Pappy out the back as well. So if you're ballsy, if you want to take a risk or two, do the opposite. Go Hughes over Cleary, but not for me. But hey, I'm not in that top 20 for the starter comp. So what do I know?
I tend to agree, and we talk about every week that we play pretty safe most weeks, and we don't want to take a massive risk, particularly at the moment with qualification for that GDS Cup on the line. We want to play a pretty simple formula of Hines and Cleary, and then look for maybe that third option being a little bit more risky play based on the matchup data that we've got, albeit a small sample size. So yeah, I'm with you. The easy play is Cleary. He stands up in big games. We know he does. And even last week when they were under the pump, you look at what Cleary did in that last 20 minutes. He worked his ass off to try and bring that game back. And he put it on his shoulders that he was the one that needed to save it. And they almost did. They almost came out of that game with a win. So I think, yeah, for me, I'm going to bench Hughes just because I think he's got a tougher matchup. He hasn't had the runs on the board against the Panthers in the past either. So I don't see it going the way of the Storm in terms of Hughes or Munster being dominant in that GDS scoring. So I think, yeah, Cleary for me all day.
Sif Kanger summed it up pretty well, mate. We could have saved a bit of time. He said he told his mate that he's not playing Cleary, and his mate told him he's not taking the app seriously. So, yeah, well put. That makes total sense to me. You're not taking the app seriously if you're not playing the best player in the game, and that's Nathan Cleary. Well done, mate. I love it. Righto. The centres. I think like the edges, mate, pretty tough to pick a standout too. I think we've actually both landed on the same two, though, and I thought there might be a bit of variety. But it's Best and Cobbo, isn't it?
Yep. I think they're probably two standouts. And, we've got Holmes out this week, so we can't just go to that safety net of Val Holmes. So I think, Cobbo, based on that matchup, we've already talked extensively about the matchup that the Broncos have up against the Cowboys. So I think Cobbo's one of those key players for me in terms of hoping that he's on the end of a few good balls and can get over the line a couple of times, which we've already seen from Cobbo as well. And even in a losing side, we've seen them still score decent points. Look, the thing that I like is the Cowboys left edge, as I said, have allowed 62 GDS points to all right side attackers, and that's an average of over 54 GDS points to right wingers. So Cobbo playing in your centres for GDS, but more than likely lining up on the wing there for the Bronx. So yeah, I'm happy to run with Cobbo. And then Best, it's hard just not to go past Best and what the Knights are doing. They're just one of the form sides, and that combination that he's got with the likes of KP, Sharp, Lucas obviously now out, and Marju and Best seem to be back on the same page. I think it's hard not to. I don't see too much changing against the Titans side that allowed the Bulldogs 40-odd points in that game on Sunday. So I think, there's an opportunity there that this game's going to be a massive scoring game as well from both sides. I think both sides have got an opportunity to score a lot of points. And, it wasn't really the centres for the Doggies that did all the damage in that game, but I think the left edge partnership and that chemistry that they've got, I think, are going to dominate the right side.
Yeah, Nathaniel's asking about Gagai and if he's gone cold. Do we think? I think it's the fact that Gagai's necessarily gone cold. It's just how dominant the Knights are on their left-hand side, and they're obviously choosing to go down that channel a little bit more frequently than even they have in the past, when we did still consider them left side dominant. So Gags was a great centre last season. His base was unreal, his tackle breaking, but there was a much more even distribution of the ball between left and right. But just Sharp is incredible on that left-hand side. He makes so much happen, and Ponga obviously favouring the left-hand side as well. And that just means Best and Marju are capitalising on that side as well. And that means Gagai sort of standing out there catching a cold when a lot of the points are being scored down the left-hand channel. But yeah, Gagai's got the pedigree. He hasn't become a poor player. He just probably hasn't had the same involvement as he had in the past. So if the Knights have a favourable matchup and we think their left-hand side is going to dominate, that's an easier opportunity to pod across to Gagai, who's definitely more than capable, and maybe go a little bit different to Bradman Best. But it was so pleasing to see Best finally being able to promote the ball and draw and pass. And Marju was fantastic as well, wasn't he? I think he pumped out four or five offloads, which was great to see. And obviously the coach has given him a bit of trust in doing that in his own end. And that's obviously gold for fantasy points. So before the Lucas injury, I was actually going to have Ponga, Lucas, Sharp, Best, and Marju. And I didn't really care too much about loading up on one side of the field. It's just that they are so dominant in terms of their point scoring. And And Nathaniel, that's why, Gagai doesn't even really come into consideration for me. Jason Saab scored 54, Stone Street 61 in the same spot that Selwyn Cobbo is lining up on Friday night. So, yeah, for me, he's probably got to score some tries to pass 50, but he's certainly more than capable with, obviously, with Saab and Stone Street doing that over the last couple of weeks. I don't think there's any reason why he can't. We know that Reece Walsh is probably going to be a lot better this match. I don't think he can go much worse, which means, that's going to be good for both Arthurs on the left and Cobbo on the right as well. So, yeah, for me, two probably fairly simple plays with a bit of upside. But the other names on that list, Garrick, Farnworth, and Kaeliro, are all really good shouts this week as well. So I don't think I'll have Best and Cobbo across 4 teams. I think there'll be a bit of diversity with those other few names on the team sheet there. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Herbie Farnworth have that one match where he really breaks out and breaks sort of 8 or 10 tackles, scores a try, and we're all racing to get him into our teams next season. We haven't quite seen the best of him yet in terms of his tackle breaking and attacking ability. Can't be too far away. On the other side, we've seen Kaeliro do really well with ball in hand, so he's in a bit of form, and sticking him in your side, wouldn't be a bad thing either.
And just on those 3, look, just if you want some stats to back up maybe some of the reasons why we're not playing or I'm not playing them in particular. In terms of Garrick, he comes up against the Raiders that have limited right centres to 37 GDS points so far, and the Raiders have allowed more on the left side. Farnworth coming up against the Tigers, limited right centres to 32 GDS points so far. Interesting that the Tigers have also allowed 32 GDS points to left centres as well. And then the Kaeliro comes up against the Bunnies, and they've limited left centres to 39.7 points. So for me, if I was going to go one of those, I'd probably go Kaeliro, just with that potential matchup there against the Bunnies. But just on the Bunnies, I just want to jump back to a question that JT had here about the halves. And with Humphreys averaging 51 points through kick meters and tackles alone, where do we have him ranked this week? I think the matchup is tough against the Sharks. I probably have him ranked maybe 4th or 5th across my halves, just because of that matchup. The Sharks have limited opposition halves to 33.3 GDS points across all the games that they've played so far. So, and that's across both left and right side halves. So there's obviously an opportunity there for Humphreys in terms of those base stats. But then it's just the defense for me that I think, potentially it might not go the way of Humphreys this week like we've seen in the past. But, JT is one of those ones that had a massive game last week and had a really good results up on the leaderboard. So JT, you might be on to a player there that maybe others won't be playing, particularly in my squad anyway. I won't necessarily be playing Jamie Humphreys.
Yeah, that 51 in base in just 3 NRL starts, pretty impressive. Yeah. But the matchup for me, we'll probably see him drop off a few more tackles. He probably won't be as creative in attack. Maybe won't be kicking as many goals. But yeah, if you can bank 50 points every single match before even thinking about attacking stats each and every week, fantastic. I think that number's going to drop off. He's not going to keep that all season long, but it's certainly a very impressive start to the year. And if they had a bit more of an easier opponent, he'd certainly be a lot higher up in that conversation. Beautiful. Let's get on to the wingers, and a pretty short list here. I have already mentioned that I'm loading up on my Knights players, and the beauty about having Fletcher Sharp as a winger, but playing for the Knights in the number 6 jumper, just means he's got his hands on the ball a lot more frequently. He's playing really well as well in terms of getting some base stats in tackles, breaking plenty of tackles, but then linking up, with the likes of Ponga, Lucas, Bradman Best down that left-hand side. He's just a footy player, isn't he? He just puts his hand up for plenty of work. He's just always asking questions, and it's not going to be long until he has that huge game where he scores 2 tries and runs for over 200 meters as well with a couple of line breaks, and he's cracked that 80 or a 90. He's getting close, like a lot of those Knights players are. And for me, the out of position player means he's got to be a lock in my side. I still don't have a top rarity. I don't have a diamond card for him for champion, but he's one of the players I'm more than happy to sort of play a plat in champion for, and even at the expense of Brian Toto. Now I think you're leaning Toto. Why are you going him over maybe a Fletcher Sharp?
Yeah, and we'll get to some news that's in the chat there in a moment, and I've also got some other news about that Storm Panthers game tomorrow night that we'll get to in a moment as well.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, the Toto shout, I guess it's about what we've seen him do in the past and what we know he can do. I think when we look at someone like Marju and Toto, they don't necessarily have super soft matchups this week, but they both accumulate points through similar sort of metrics. We know they both love a hit up from a kick return, and they gain a lot of meters through that way. They love a few tackle breaks, and then potentially a couple of tries off the end of some unreal inside work from some of those boys inside them. So I think for me, Marju's a lock for me in that winger spot. He's had 15 tackle breaks, the most in the competition for wingers. He's had 10 offloads again, which is the most in the competition for wingers. So I think it's just a lock and load for Marju. Toto only scored 22 points last week. That included a try. So I can see why a lot of coaches would be off him, but it's obviously the multiple errors that really cost Toto those points. The thing as well that I found interesting, he only gained 128 meters, which was way down from his 2024 average of over 200 meters per game. But I think that's an opportunity then for him to bounce back. And it's also in the back of my mind. I know you said it, but I don't know if I can continue to load up on players from the same team with a decent matchup. I'm just a little bit scared off after last week's debacle. So I think for me, I know what Toto can do. I know that the base stats are there for him. And we know he's healthy because he was dancing all over the stage a few weeks ago in Vegas. So we know that there's no injury concerns. It's just about him getting back to what he knows. And like you said, I feel like the Panthers have probably circled the Storm matchup as a big one, and they've probably been focusing on this matchup more so than others. So
I played Toto last week, hoping to get a bit of a jump on some people that didn't, realize that he'd be coming back into the team, or maybe didn't scroll down far enough to see his name because he still had a 0 after not playing in Vegas, and that didn't turn out very well. So we know that the matchup against the Storm is probably going to be a bit tougher. I want to see a bit more from Toto. I want to see the ball going right a bit more often. They've also got a different fullback this round that you might want to give a bit more information on shortly, but obviously Dylan Edwards isn't there, and we know that Edwards loves to favour that right-hand side, and when Cleary and Edwards are linking up on the right, I love playing Toto. But without Edwards on that team sheet for the next maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I'm just leaning Greggy Marju over him. And if either of the Knights, next week the Knights won't be playing because they're on the bye. So Toto will certainly be a walk-up start for me. But I'm going to favour the 2 Knights boys. But we don't have Dylan Edwards at fullback. Do you know who the replacement is going to be?
Yeah, well, they named Dane Laurie there at fullback, but the 24-hour mails come through. They have made some team changes, and it is Jenkins that is going to get the nod over him, which is super surprising considering we've seen Dane Laurie have some unreal games, both on the wing and at fullback in the past. So, super surprising. The other minor change for the Storm is Big Nelson Asafa-Solomona comes onto the bench as well for his first game for the season. But that fullback news is the big one. I think Dane Laurie was potentially a little sneaky pod for some people as well. But you're going to have to rethink that strategy a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite surprising that they've named Jenkins at fullback. I think maybe it's just Laurie's out, maybe through injury, and it's easy just to put the next player in line in that same position rather than rejigging everything. I don't actually think he'll take the field in the fullback position. I expect maybe a Casey McLean to do that instead, because we know Jenkins is more of an out-and-out winger and maybe part-time centre. Wouldn't surprise me to see a late Blaise Talangi start up in that fullback spot. Given he's had a bit of experience in that position, so I think there might be a couple of smoke and mirrors. Talangi is still in the 19, I presume, with the 24-hour cutoff. So I don't think we'll see it Jenkins line up in that fullback spot. But if he does, Brian To'o for me is probably not going to see as much ball as he would with a more reliable fullback. But if Blaze Talangi is there, I think he'll go quite well. It is against the Storm. But interesting to see what happens 1 hour from kickoff. So make sure if you're working, if you're busy during that time, put your alarm on, organise maybe a toilet break for that 1 hour team list before kickoff, because there might be a few late changes that you need to get around, particularly with Nico Hines as well before the Sharkies game. If he's in any doubt, we'll know at least the very latest an hour before that match as well. So the importance of checking team lists so we don't end up with a zero. There's obviously currently no sort of emergencies or flex players. We've just got to cop that zero. So checking those team lists is, I know, tricky for some, but I know that you've been doing a really good job posting in the Discord as well. So even more of a reason for people to jump onto that Discord and keep up to date with the ins and outs during that 1 hour announcement before kickoff. Just quickly, we see 3 other names on that list there, particularly Jesse Arthurs and Dean Mariner. We've already spoken at length about a number of the Broncos we're expecting to go well. I think that some people will find a spot for Arthurs or Mariner in their sides, and I think that's a somewhat risky, but certainly a play that could certainly come off with plenty of points going down the left through Jesse Arthurs, or through the right with Mariner and Cobbo as well. So not for me this round.
No.
I'll go the safety in the Knights players or To'o, but some Broncos pods this round wouldn't be a bad thing. Fullbacks, mate.
Yeah.
What are we thinking?
Yes. Well, this is another tough spot, isn't it? It's I mean, we've probably got one lock in Kalen Ponga. I think that's really clear. My second soft lock at the moment is Reece Walsh. Hopefully, with a big bounce back against that horrible looking Cowboys side, and like you said, it can't get much worse from a negative 7.57 or whatever it was that he ended up on for Walshy. So I feel like there could be a big bounce back for him here, and obviously there was a bit of pressure on him after that game as well. I saw, I think, a few highlights or lowlights packages rolled out over various socials over the weekend and through the week of Reece Walsh. So I think for me, I'm going to lock in Ponga for sure, based on what he's done so far and based on that matchup, and then likely play Reece Walsh as my second fullback on the bench. The Cowboys have allowed an average of 55 GDS points to fullbacks so far, so there's every opportunity for Walsh to go well. But it's that third fullback spot that is an absolute doozy for me. Turbo, we know, is nursing a all too familiar hammy injury, which saw him leave the field against the Warriors. And we've had reports of he's 50-50. He's fitness test late over the weekend. The worst part is that he plays the final game of the round, and there's not many options to pivot outside of that. So, I'm super nervous right now because we don't have any updates. So it's probably going to be maybe a Teddy or a Pappenhausen that I bring into that side. One stands out a little bit more for me, and that's Ryan Pappenhausen up against the Panthers. They've allowed 57.3 GDS points to fullbacks. And look, no disrespect to someone like William Kennedy, but he's not at the top of everyone's list for the greatest fullbacks of all time. And I think Pappenhausen is a lot stronger than he is. So I think Pappy's got an opportunity there against the Panthers that, might be a new makeshift team coming up tomorrow night if we see a few more of these changes come through.
Yeah, interesting actually. We'd probably expect the Panthers to blow out a bit further in the market as well. And where are we? Down there in Melbourne? They're playing in Melbourne, aren't they? So home game for the Storm. A number of changes to the Panthers. No Edwards. Yeah, that Pappenhausen shout is probably looking better and better the more we talk about it. For me, the annoying thing is, the first match of the round versus Turbo, the final match, and Pappy's got the Panthers matchup. We know in the back of our heads it's a tough matchup. Whether it has been on paper for the last 2 weeks might be a different story. The thing for me is Pappy strikes me as that smaller body that sort of bullies some of the easier teams that give up a bit more space on the fringes. Yeah. But against some of the stronger teams, or the teams that defend a lot better through the middle and down the edges as well, he's not really that big body turbo Latrell type fullback that punches the ball up through the middle and breaks some tackles and offloads. He's a bit more creative and tries to slice through those gaps down the fringes. And I don't think the Panthers are going to give up too many of those opportunities this week. We obviously saw him, in scintillating form against the Eels, but when push comes to shove, that was the Eels. We haven't seen it against a top quality side this year. But look, Pappy's certainly probably going to be played by some. I'll be sort of watching between the cracks in my fingers, hoping Pappy doesn't go too well. I think he'll have a good game, but I might just leave that third fullback spot open for maybe a Teddy. If we get some news about Turbo that he's good to go on maybe Saturday. But obviously a pivot is probably more than likely. And for those people that are really set on Turbo and wanting to play him at Brookie because of his form at home and against the Raiders as well, that's the one team that he does seem to go quite well against, particularly at home. If you have him on your bench, you can also pivot to, another back in that Manly team. And if Hopewadi moves to fullback or you haven't played Garrick in your centres, at least you've got them as a decent option, and there might be a couple of Raiders as an option as well that you might want to plug in there too. So it's not all doom and gloom if you do have Turbo in your reserves, but certainly don't put him in your starting fullback if he's a laid out. That's going to be pretty tough to cover. Who is there? Maybe is KO Weeks a fullback? And you certainly don't want to be. Probably don't want to be stuck playing him. Mates, I think Reece Walsh is going to have a big game. He has to. He's not going to like any of those low lights from last week. He's probably gone off, hasn't looked at YouTube, or probably hasn't looked at Twitter this week, because there's probably just so many low lights of all these errors. What's concerning for me is that we saw these errors last year. And he's had a whole preseason under Madge, and they've talked about new structures, and they've got Ben Hunt in there as well. But we're seeing the same sort of decision making and the same sort of push passes and the same errors that we saw 6, 12, 18 months ago. So that for me is still concerning, that he's still risking that pass, and it's not just once in the game. He's thrown the same thing 3 or 4 times, and it's resulting in the same outcome. So after a whole preseason, that is slightly concerning for me. He just needs that one game to bounce back and get some confidence in him. I reckon he's going to slice through in his own half. He's going to step, drink water, score under the post, do a backflip, and then on his way to 70 GDS points. So I love the Walsh play. It's definitely that third spot for me. JT thinks Teddy is going to destroy the Wars. Now I know that he's probably just saying that because it's a bit of reverse psychology there. That if Teddy does destroy the Wars, that he can say, I told you so. And maybe he played him in his team. But if Teddy doesn't destroy the Wars, that means the Wars are probably going to go pretty well. But no, I think I'm with you there, JT. Teddy will have a big game. And I think for me, he's probably that replacement for Turbo if I don't go Pappenhausen tomorrow night.
Just on Teddy, the Warriors have only allowed an average of 27.5 GDS points to fullbacks in the first 2 games. Very small sample size. We saw a completely different story last season, where I think in the first 2 games they allowed something like 85 GDS points to fullbacks. So it might be something in that, and it might be just that they've done pretty well so far at limiting those fullbacks, and that it's time for Teddy to break out and lead the Roosters to a big win again, like he did last week. But for me, I don't know. I feel like maybe, like you said, is maybe the option is putting Turbo in and then being able to pivot to someone like a Garrick or a Savage, maybe something like that, in that bench spot. Who we know, Savage has had a pretty good couple of runs at it so far, so there's plenty of opportunity for him as well. But it's such a tough call, this fullback spot, I think, this week.
That's what we love. There's so much variety that we're not all just having to plug in the best 3 players from each position. There's quite a bit of roulette going on and bouncing back and forth between some top players. I love it. Rightio. Stu is back. Let's go. G'day, Tom. I am back.
Love it.
Mate, I took a few notes last week. You and JT are outstanding, mate. But I'm back here where I belong. I think this is where I do my best work. And yeah, cracking show tonight. Dill and I are just about to get into a summary of our starter squads. You see that Dill and I have 4 different decisions so far. By the end of the round, I'm sure there'll be a few more differences in our starter squads. We always seem to make some changes on the run, but the big ones are obviously Sharp against To'o, Reynolds and Galvin. I've gone Tino to his Fanua Blake, and I've got Nickera at the moment over Preston, but we still both have Dylan Lucas in our squad, so that will probably need to be changed. And I'll need to find a second edge forward, and I think Dill's going to move over to Nickera as well.
Yep, more than likely. Alrighty, let's jump into something that we loved during the cricket season, and that is Bro Down Showdown. Stu and I go head to head, picking the best performing players for the round, and we'll select a forward, a half, and a back. So there'll either be a 3-0 or a 2-1 winner each week. To make it more exciting for everyone, whoever comments on this video on YouTube or on Facebook, over either the live or after the live is completed, you go in the chance to win some cards from packs that we open. So you can see our selections on screen there. Stewie got up again, the 2-1. Obviously, it all came down to Turbo against Walsh, and that was a 13.9 point victory that Turbo secured over Walsh's -7. So unfortunately, I find myself on the wrong end of a 2-1 defeat again. So that means I'm going to open a 3-player rare pack, and 2 cards are going to go to Stu. He will pick those 2 cards. He hasn't seen the pack yet. I have pre-opened it, so it's ready to go. And then 1 card will go to a lucky viewer who commented on the video and selected Stu to win. So we have a few lucky viewers that I'm going to spin the wheel on to get them to see who is going to take out that 1 card. So let's get the wheel up here and have a look at who is going to win. So you see your names there. You are the ones that have commented on Stewie to win up against me. So let's spin the wheel. Matty Pierce, he won last week. Can he do the double and go back to back? And it looks like it is Michael Cozzy. So, mate, Cozzy's posse, make sure that you hit us up after this, and we will send you the card that we're about to open. So, Stu, you should be able to see the 3-player rare pack on screen.
I can.
Where would you like to start? And did you want to pick yours first, or do you want to pick the one going?
Yeah, let's do a slow reveal. I want the card on the right, please. I'm feeling something on the right.
So you're going to take this card here.
Correct.
It's gold, and it's Uto Gamanu for the Storm there. Could be in for a big game against the Penny Panthers tomorrow night. All right, where are we going next, buddy?
All right, give me the middle, please.
Middle for Stu. Again, it is a gold card. It is Sean Lane back in the side. Be interesting to see what happens. And this final card, it is going to Cozzy's posses, and it is a gold, and it's Adam Dwayhe or Dewey. I'm not sure which one he wants to be preferred to be called again. So, Cozzy, make sure that you hit us up and on the Discord, and we can send that out to you. Great card there to get your team going in Classic or in Challenger. All right, and so our selections this week have a couple of doozies again for you. We are going with May, Hines, and Ponga up against the Broncos 3 of Haas, Reynolds, and Walsh. I love that. It's an unreal head-to-head matchup. So if you think that my selections of May, Hines, and Ponga are going to steamroll the Broncos 3, make sure you say Dill in the comments. If you think Stewie's going to take it out with the Broncos up against the Cowboys, make sure that you comment Stew, and you will be in the running to win some cards from us.
Yeah, get commenting, guys. Make sure you do that when the stream is finished, so we can see that those comments have been added to the YouTube video. And while you're there, make sure you give the video a like and subscribe to our channel as well, so you can see us when we're going live. Looks like a few people already taking Dill. They're not backing the they're coming for you. Yeah, I don't think they're backing the Bronx to all go off at once. I've certainly done something a little bit different here, and we'll see how that comes off. Yeah, g'day Michael Cossey's gone the Stu.
Aussies.
All righty.
Love it.
That's about it for our round 3 preview, Dill. That was a great look at what's happening over round 3. We've got another show, obviously, next Wednesday night for round 4. But thanks, everyone, for joining us as usual. Great to see the comments coming in like normal. They're still going, Dill or Stu. Sorry, Stu. Yeah, all righty. Thanks very much for joining us, everyone. Make sure you get those comments onto the YouTube channel once we go off this stream. And everyone's saying, Dill, you're going to come back with egg on your face next week because Stu's going to go up 3 points to 0. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks, Dill. Thanks for popping in the comments as well, guys. We'll catch you next week. Good luck for round 3.
Thanks, guys. See you later.